My name is Pastor Hal York, and welcome to Truth in the Trenches. Today we're going to be in Proverbs chapter 31. In chapter 31, as we know, is a mother talking to her son. But it's not just any son or an ordinary son. It is her son, the king. You may be the king, but I'm still your mother. That's the power a mother has. Moms never lose the power to influence their children. We've looked at some of her counsel to her son, the king, in previous Trenches devotionals. Today I'd like to take a quick look at verses 8 and 9, where we read, "Open your mouth for the mute, for the justice of all those passing away. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and render justice to the afflicted and the needy." What do we have here in these verses? We have a mom telling her son to be on the side of those who are often neglected or exploited in our culture and many cultures. The mute, those who are dying, the afflicted and the needy. These people would not be on the guest list on many galas at the palace, nor would they be on the radar for many higher profile people to hobnob with in their spare time. Why? Because they will not be able to do anything for your career, or lead to a promotion, or help fund your election campaign. They will not make your guest list impressive to those who come to your party and are now surrounded by these types of people. Who invited them? When they find out it was you, they're not going to be impressed. But this mom is not appealing to her son's title primarily, but to his character, to his compassion as a person. Don't just surround yourself with people who will make you look good and bolster your ego. Open your mouth for the person who has no voice. Think about them. Practice justice for the dying, for the afflicted and the needy. These are often people who are taken advantage of or just plain forgotten by people who are higher up in political circles and by society in general. They may take a token trip for a photo shoot to their neighborhood where these people live, throw a shovel of dirt into a pothole on their road and post it on Facebook, and then hurry back to the castle to hobnob with their rich and famous friends. This mom is telling her son, the king, listen, I didn't raise you to be a snob. I didn't raise you to be uncaring and to only think about yourself. You were in a position to do good to those in such lowly positions, so do it, regardless of the impact it has on your peers or your political career. But let's bring it up to the present. How about you? How about we, as moms and dads? Do we teach our kids to look for the child in class who's not popular, or maybe spends lunches by themselves or recess alone? No one wants to play with them. It's obvious by the way they dress that they're not wearing the most popular clothes and the labeled jeans, and they're obviously not that well off. And do your kids avoid them like everybody else, or are you teaching them to show compassion to the needy, to the afflicted, to the unpopular, to the poor, maybe to the new kid? To stand up for them, to make sure that they're not taken advantage of, to speak up for them, to be a friend to the friendless. This mom was probably reminding her son, you may be the king, but you still need to have a heart. You still need to care about people who can't pay you back, people who have no one else to care. Am I teaching that to my children? Well, number one, am I doing it myself as a parent? Do your kids see that attitude in me, in you? Or do you and I seek to avoid such people as well? They're messy. They're time-consuming. Loving them is not easy. It's hard. It's not advantageous for you, at least from an earthly perspective. But remember what James 1:27 says, "Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of God and the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world." Pure and undefiled religion is not afraid to get messy, to roll up its sleeves and love the hard to love. To love people who's going to cost you time and money. 1 John 3:17, "Whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him?" Little children, let us not love in word or tongue, but in deed and in truth. The parable of the Good Samaritan is a perfect example. He sees a man on the side of the road, beaten and bruised and battered, almost in death's door. He'd been robbed. He has nothing to pay him back with. But he takes care of him, he manages his needs, he takes him to a hotel and puts him up and tells the owner he'll be back, and whatever else, other expenses he's incurred, he'll pay it. That's called loving your neighbor, Jesus said. And Jesus tells a parable in Luke 14 about he said that Also to the man who had invited him, when you give a dinner or a banquet, do not invite your friends, your brothers, or your relatives, or rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just. And I think we could add to that, that'll probably be the first banquet the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind will have ever been to, and you invited them. But there's a spiritual application here, obviously. Jesus loved us while we were crippled, lame, and blind spiritually, lost without hope. No one could do anything for us. His love caused him to humble himself and become a man, to live among us for 33 years. He healed and he touched the leper, the sinner, the untouchable, the beggars, the blind, the outcasts of society. That's where Jesus spent his time. Ultimately, he went to the cross to die for people who rejected him, who mocked him, who spat upon him, sinners like us. Who, while we were yet sinners, it says, he died for us. He took our sin upon himself. Now he calls us to believe, place our faith alone in him alone to save us. And when we do, he adopts us into our family. He forgives us our debt, our sin completely. And he says, go out and love others as I have loved you. This mom says to her son, the king, open your mouth for the mute, for the justice of all those passing away. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and render justice to the afflicted and the needy. May we go out and do likewise. Love as we have been loved. Be merciful, be compassionate, and teach our children to do so as well. And may this truth guide us and guard us in the trenches of life as we seek to live for the glory of God and the good of others. May God bless.